What if we could learn from outstanding leaders in business, sports, and education from some of the best voices in corporate America? Lighting the Path is a series of interviews with industry leaders whose stories highlight strategies that build purpose-driven cultures, engage and retain top talent, develop drivers that create high-performance teams, and connect people to the vision of your company. Join us to hear from game-changing, talented leaders whose paths make a difference at work and at home.
Yeah, and I think along the lines of what you're saying is people can buy from anybody. I mean, generally, we're not the only ones that have a product. Like, we're not Apple, and even Apple has competition. So
I've never run into one industry that they're the only one
exactly
in their industry.
That's right. So I just look at it as, can people trust you? Are you showing up to meetings on time? Are you providing value? Do you say, I will get something to you by close of business and actually do that? Do you say, I'll be there first thing in the morning and show up at 11 o'clock in the morning, showing that you're not keeping your word? Or I'll get back to you later today and it's 2 days later and you apologize. Every little thing that we do tells your prospective buyer, your client, something about you. Can they trust you? And if you're really service minded, it's all about them. And so at 5 o'clock, at 4:59, if you still have not gotten to them, your conscience is getting to you. You know you have to get that. There may be an apology at 2 minutes after 5, but you still get it to them. And if you can't, you're apologizing and saying, I had to count on a few other people here. It didn't happen the way I thought it was going to be. Can I get a few more hours? Right? It's permission based. Mm-hmm. So everything that we do is really serving, and not this idea that we're somehow better than others, that people need to do business with us because we're the best thing ever. And even if we are, that type of,
you got to demonstrate it, right? You can't say it, you got to demonstrate it.
Exactly.
Yeah. I love Neil Rackham's book, Spin Selling.
Yeah.
He breaks down the difference between high level, high impact transactions and lower valued. And that's what this whole, for me, sort of pitch versus serve mentality. The bigger ticket, the higher impact situations require this atmosphere of investigation, of asking the best questions. And that's, to me, is kind of at the heart of and I love this word you're using with dignity. Where did that come from? Where did you get that impetus?
Yeah, it came a lot from the whole mission background and just the way to treat people. So I'm very empathetic, and everyone means something in life, and it's not just there's the homeless person or whatever. We look at people and say, I'm glad I'm not like them. I mean, I look at somebody, and many of us do. It's not like I'm unique. What we look at, we feel. And in sales, it's my thought is that I built a career out of selling with this very humane look at people. And I never wanted to be pushy. I mean, there are times I've made mistakes. I'm not perfect. I mean, I was pushy at times. I felt like that's not for me. But as I was going through COVID, I said, you know what? I've got, my first title of the book was Sell Like It's Your Mission. And then someone asked me, well, what does that mean? And I said, it means selling with dignity. The person asked me, it's like, that's a pretty good title right there, because it says what it is. I'm like, yeah, I agree.
Yeah, that's a great, that's a great way of putting it. It's ironic that this subject is coming up again, because a recent guest, Michael Petrak, who his book that he proposed, those of you who may have been on tuned into that show, his book, he wrote a book called Legacy, and it's a fable-based book. But the one of the key questions that the book asks us to weigh out as we interact with others, whether it's leaders, whether it's sales, whether it's in our home, is that are we noble?
Mm.
Are we making noble decisions? And so when you think about this word dignity, you think about this word noble. It's, salespeople have a bad rap. They're mercenaries. They're only after a buck. And that is really not true.
Right.
For the most. Some are.
Yeah.
Some are. But for the most part, good people who are high-performing salespeople really have a caring heart about being able to serve and deliver to the clients that they're calling on.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's really in a consultative sale, especially, if you're just going down the street and sales is a numbers game to you, that's just a different type of selling that goes on. But a consultative approach means that you have people are really going to make an investment, not only in your product, but in you and your team. Sometimes if you're consultative, it's a team approach. So it's a big decision, and respecting that where people are making a big investment in you. Sometimes jobs get lost based on bad decisions over buying the wrong product, wrong software. There's a lot going on there.
Has huge impact, and it's when if you're going to be, you call it consultative, which I think is I've heard that phrase years back. We need to have a consultative approach. Then I went, okay, so where's the consultative degree? Where do you get the training to be? We weren't teaching, the art of being consultative. And I love this thing with your process of selling with dignity that takes people through a process of how do you do that? How do you position yourself from a consultative perspective? One of the things, and we don't have time to go through the entire book, but there's one thing that jumped out at me, and that where you talk about the importance of practice. And I love that concept because of, if you look at professional athletes, we talked to Carl Mecklenburg, who played for the Broncos for 12 years, a couple of episodes ago. And he anchored in as professional athletes have the art of, they practice, they watch game film. Matter of fact, they watch more game film than they spend time on the field. You talked about practicing something that I've not heard people talk about before. And it's practicing the art of how to listen. What's your coaching? What do you do to tell me, how do I practice listening?
Yeah, you practice it by making it every day. Mm-hmm. It's doing it every day in every conversation.
Yeah, but I'm going to push down, not to contradict you, but it's to help people understand what we're talking about here. I want to define this word "it." So in other words, if I'm going to go practice listening today, okay, yes. If I'm going to go practice it, what is it in your mind?
Yes. All right. So it's listening intentionally.
Okay.
Right. So I'll give you an example because that's what I do. I use this. I did a video the other day where I was looking at a phone and pretending that I was texting and said, in a minute, yes, I'm listening. This is how many of us listen. We listen distracted to whoever is speaking. And I think a great place to practice is in the home. And that would be to listen to your kids. If you have kids at home, listen to your spouse. And it's just the conversation where you can actually stop what you're doing, look at the person, and breathe without worrying about what you're going to say. And over the years, I've gotten better at this. I've got a long ways to go. But over the years, I have gotten better. It used to be very judgmental, like when my kids were speaking or an employee was speaking. It's like, we all have those moments. It's like, what are you thinking, right? Where it's judgmental. But when you start listening with intentionality, you remove the judgment and you're practicing. So that way, as soon as you start to interrupt, you recognize that now I just interrupted the person, whereas I want to be better at that. And so you're making strides and progressing so that you're allowing people to finish their sentences. You're not judging them. You're now, instead of like years ago, I could think of maybe one of my kids would say something that they're doing, like, why would you want to hang out with that person, for instance? So just throw out an example. And now they could tell me something and I'm going to say, so what's your thought about that? And just have the conversation and just remove the judgment. People are going to pick up on your tone. As a leader in a company, your team comes up with an idea. Do you listen, or are you already shaking your head, frowning, your eyes are moving like you're disgusted with the idea? That is not a good idea. Practice all of that, because you've got to get better at that for people to really love your leadership, and without judgment, right? Where you're truly being one that leads in a noble way, if you will.
Yeah, and I love what you're talking about, Harry, because what I'm picturing is you're asking people to practice being present, meaning not in the room, but mentally living in the present, in the moment, not thinking about the past, not worrying about the future. And also, the second word that I wrote down as you were talking, be present. And the second, am I listening to understand? Because if I'm doing that, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to listen like I'm peeling an onion. I'm going to listen for layers. I'm going to take it to a deeper level. And I love what you said about this. So you give us a question you threw in when you were talking about you're dealing with one of your kids or whatever, but it's a powerful question. So what do you think about that? Right? Whatever the state, you're allowing them the statement. So what do you think about that? And you're asking them, you tell me more. Yeah, it's being able to peel our way down. So I want to thank you for being so gracious with your time on this. And for anybody who wants to have get more information about your sales training, so I call it initiative, not a program, but selling with dignity. How do they find you?
The simple way is sellingwithdignity.com. They can find me there. Easy to connect with me on any of the social media platforms right from my website. Or if they want to have a conversation, that's there as well.
Super. Well, I want to thank you for your time, and I wish you great success on what I think, as for those of us who are in a leadership type of role, is one of the most important things we can take on, because we may not be prospecting, but as leaders, we should be helping the sales process of organizations and customer relationships of the organizations that we're trying to serve. Anything we can do to help along those lines. That's why your message is so important. I think it's a game changer for people who will wrap their arms around it. So thanks so much for your time.
Thank you, Mike. It's been great.
Thanks for joining us today on Lighting the Path, Strategies for Tomorrow's Leaders. If anything in this podcast speaks to you, if I've challenged you, or if you want to spend time digging into this subject a little deeper, or if you disagree with me, reach out. My contact information is on our website, lightingthepath.net, or email me at mike@mikelejeune.com. Also, look for me on LinkedIn. I'd love to connect our networks. Keep lighting the path for those who choose to follow you. It's more than a responsibility. It's an honor.